Hello and welcome to Writing America Pages and People. If you're here to learn about an American author and some of their works, then you're in the right place. My name is Rachel Rigolino, and I'm an instructor in the English department at the State University of New York at New Paltz. So come on, we'll watch this video and leave some comments below.
In 19th century New York, a wealthy socialite realized the easiest way to murder her sister over a man wasn't, slipping poison into a teacup or hiring a thug.
Oh, definitely not. That would be way too messy.
Right. It was so much simpler. She just tricked her into going out to the Roman Colosseum at night to catch a deadly strain of malaria.
Just incredibly ruthless.
Totally. And welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to explore the razor-sharp, fiercely intelligent and quietly ruthless world of Edith Wharton.
Yeah, and we are working with a really fascinating stack of sources for this one. We've got a comprehensive biography of Wharton alongside two just brilliant pieces of literary criticism.
Right, by Rachel Bowlby and James Phelan.
Exactly, because in Wharton's, she's rarely given enough credit for being this absolute architect of psychological warfare.
Yeah, if you thought classic literature was just like stuffy drawing rooms, you were in for a shock.
Most casual readers associate her with gilded drawing rooms and, polite manners. But today, we're going to map out her legacy as a trailblazing American writer.
Right.
We'll examine her early mastery of short fiction, specifically looking at the mechanics of her 1899 story, A Journey.
Which is terrifying, by the way.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
And then we'll spend the bulk of our time really dissecting her masterpiece of suspense, the 1934 story, Roman Fever, to see exactly how she mastered the short story form.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we analyze the mechanics of her stories, we really have to look at the incredibly exclusive world she was analyzing.
We do. The context is everything here.
Right. So Edith Wharton was born Edith Newbold Jones in 1862, right into the epicenter of wealthy old money New York.
Yeah, we're talking descendants of merchant ship owners, the absolute elite.
The people who literally dictated society. And her family, they essentially viewed her interest in writing as an embarrassing quirk.
Like it was a flaw.
Yeah, like it was something completely beneath a woman of her social standing.
Well, the world she navigated was one where a woman's value was entirely dictated by her social standing and her marriage, not her intellect.
Right.
And her family's social circuit was also in the middle of this massive transitional period. It was increasingly being invaded by the nouveau riches.
The new industrial money.
Exactly. And the appreciation for genuine culture was lagging way behind the simple knack for just accumulating wealth. And Wharton, she observed all of this with an incredibly clinical eye.
It makes me think of her as like a high society undercover agent.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
Because she had the ultimate old money security clearance. She could sit in the most elite, exclusive drawing rooms in New York, and nobody suspected a thing.
They just saw one of their own.
Right, while she was meticulously logging every hypocritical remark and subtle power play. And then she took all that raw data and produced these fierce, abrasive satires of their vulgarities.
And it paid off for her.
It really did. She became the first woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction for the Age of Innocence in 1921.
And she got an honorary degree from Yale, nominated for a Nobel Prize.
Just a titan.
But that insider status gave her work a very specific tension. Her fiction is uniquely focused on the conflict between individual values and societal expectations.
Right, her characters constantly yearn to escape conformity.
But they're almost invariably crushed by it. Yeah.
Exactly.
She understood the pressure of that society firsthand. While she sometimes defended the establishment's appreciation for order and beauty, she was fundamentally an individualist.
And she paid a very high personal price for that freedom, eventually expatriating to France.
Yeah. And critics often compare her to her close friend and mentor, Henry James.
Right, because they both chronicled the lives of wealthy Americans and the suffocating rules of their society.
But reading them feels entirely different.
Oh, completely. Like James will take you on a 5-page internal monologue just about a character's hesitation to open a door.
Right, the convoluted sentences.
Exactly. But Wharton, she gives you the physical details of the room, the specific cut of a dress, and somehow conveys that exact same psychological hesitation through a single sharp action.
The sources highlight that distinction beautifully. Wharton is generally perceived as preserving more of the tactile, physical details of her characters' lives.
Yeah.
She relies a lot less on the intensely elusive, purely internal psychological tangents that James is known for. With James, you often have to read his sentences twice to catch the subtle meanings he's layering in.
For sure. You really have to work for it.
Wharton delivers a series of vivid impacts. Her stories are built on rules and concealments.
Rules and concealments. I love that phrase.
Yeah, where a bit of red damask on a wall or a specific gesture reveals an entire mental attitude in a single stroke.
So what does this all mean for the reader? How does she channel this societal critique into this short story genre?
Well, she didn't just write massive novels. She burst onto the scene in 1899 with her short story collection, The Greater Inclination.
Which featured the story A Journey.
Right. And looking at the criticism from that time, reviewers were immediately struck by her finish, her assurance, and this tenacity of grasp.
Yeah, A Journey is a masterclass in establishing psychological terror within a very confined space.
It really is.
The story follows a woman traveling by train back to New York with her sick husband. He's been out west for his health, but it hasn't worked, and they are retreating home.
And then, during the journey, he dies quietly in his berth.
Just awful. And the wife realizes that if she reports his death to the conductor, protocol dictates she and the body will be put off the train at the next random station.
Leaving her entirely alone in an unfamiliar place.
Exactly. So she makes the terrifying decision to conceal his death.
Oh, it's so stressful to read.
Right. She spends the rest of the train ride pretending he's just sleeping. You can just feel the claustrophobia every time the porter walks by, every time a passenger looks in her direction. The tension ratchets up.
Yeah, and Wharton describes the rhythmic, mechanical clacking of the train wheels in a way that feels like a ticking clock.
Counting down to her inevitable discovery.
And notice how Wharton uses that physical confinement to mirror the woman's societal confinement.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The protagonist's entire identity and her social protection are tied to the man lying dead in the berth. Without him, she is utterly vulnerable.
She has no status on her own.
Exactly. She's subject to the arbitrary rules of the railroad men and society at large. The crisp, lucid style that critics praised allowed Wharton to build this suffocating atmosphere without relying on melodrama.
The horror comes from the intense maintenance of social decorum in the face of a literal corpse.
Yeah, she is essentially forced to keep up appearances while sitting next to death.
It's a brilliant way to externalize the internal suppression women of her class had to practice every single day.
It really is.
Which makes the transition to her 1934 masterpiece, Roman Fever, so fascinating. We move from the tight, literal confinement of a train car to a wide-open, sun-drenched terrace in Rome.
But as we quickly find out, that terrace is just as psychologically suffocating as the train berth.
Oh, absolutely.
Roman Fever deploys those same rules and concealments with terrifying perfection. As our listeners who follow Wharton know, the story centers on Alida Slade and Grace Ansley.
Two middle-aged, wealthy American widows.
Right, sitting on a restaurant terrace overlooking the ruins of the Palatine and the Forum. Their daughters are out with eligible Italian men, and these two lifelong acquaintances are left with, as the narrator explicitly states, time to kill.
Time to kill. And Rachel Bowlby's critical essay spends a lot of time unpacking the latent violence in Wharton's language here.
Yeah, it's not just a casual phrase.
Right. That phrase, time to kill, isn't just a cliche about being bored on a Tuesday afternoon. It's functional. These women are quite literally assassins in a social arena.
Definitely.
Like, you look at Grace sitting there knitting, and the narrator describes her drawing from her handbag a twist of crimson silk run through by two fine knitting needles.
And calls it a purposeless wound.
Yes, a purposeless wound. The imagery is incredibly graphic for two women having coffee.
The crimson silk resembling blood, the needles resembling weapons. It's a visual representation of the violence simmering just beneath the surface of their polite manners.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, because they have lived opposite each other in New York for decades.
Right.
But wait, aren't these women supposed to be lifelong friends?
Well, that's the paradox of their intimacy. As the narrator notes, they visualize each other, each through the wrong end of her little telescope.
Ah.
They think they possess complete knowledge of one another, but they actually only see tiny, distorted versions based on their own biases.
I look at this setup, and it feels exactly like a gladiator match in the Colosseum they're staring at.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right, except the arena is a cafe table, And the weapons are polite smiles, loaded questions, and those knitting needles.
Alida was defined as the Slade's wife.
Yeah.
Now that the husbands are dead, they have nothing left to do but manage their daughters and relitigate a 25-year-old battle over Delphin Slade.
They're trapped in a system where their only avenue for exerting power is to turn it against each other.
Right. And that brings us to the actual mechanics of the story.
Yeah.
Because having a dramatic backstory,
Which is Alida forging a letter to send Grace to the Coliseum at night, hoping she'd catch malaria like that murderous great Aunt Harriet from the opening hook.
right, having that backstory is one thing. But how Wharton feeds this information to the reader is another. And Wharton heavily restricts our access as readers by anchoring the narrative perspective primarily to Alida Slade.
We are sitting right in Alida's head.
Exactly. We hear her internal monologue dismissing Grace as an old-fashioned nullity who has lived a boring, uninspired life.
Yeah, because we only have Alida's perspective, we naturally adopt her judgments. We assume Alida is the dynamic, superior woman she believes herself to be.
It's a brilliant manipulation.
It really is. If you think about your own experience reading the story for the first time, you are complicit in underestimating Grace. You go along with Alida's arrogance.
We all do. Wharton, instead, leaves a trail of subtle clues scattered throughout the text.
Yeah, when you reread the story knowing the ending, you realize Grace's dialogue has been functioning on two entirely different levels the entire time.
Oh, completely.
The moment that always stands out on a reread is when Alida casually remarks that the view of the ruins from the terrace is beautiful, and Grace responds, "It always will be to me."
Such a loaded line.
Right. On a first read, immersed in Alida's dismissive viewpoint, you process that as just a polite, bland agreement from a boring woman.
But on a second read, knowing Grace met Delphin down there, you realize she is actively recalling the most passionate, defining night of her life right to her rival's face.
The nerve.
I know.
Yeah.
That layered dialogue rewards the reader's emotional investment. It forces complete recalibration of everything we just read.
We realize Grace has never been a passive victim.
Exactly. She has been holding on to an explosive piece of knowledge, carrying it quietly, while Alida patronizes her, only choosing to deploy it when Alida forces her into a corner.
By destroying her cherished illusion about the letter.
Yes, which sets up the climax of the story perfectly.
So, Alida has confessed to the forgery. She is gloating, convinced she has won the ultimate victory because she went on to marry Delphin, while Grace was rushed off to Florence and married the safe, unremarkable Horace Ansley.
And Alida looks at Grace and says, "I had everything. I had him for 25 years, and you had nothing but that one letter he didn't write."
Such a brutal line.
It is. And then Grace packs up her knitting. She turns toward the door to leave. Then she stops, turns back to Alida, and delivers 3 words. "I had Barbara." And she walks away.
Oh my gosh, I had Barbara. Just a complete mic drop.
The ultimate mic shot.
I mean-
in the span of a polite afternoon conversation, both women manage to completely destroy each other's sustaining illusions.
Yeah.
Alida loses her smug superiority and her belief in her husband's loyalty. Grace loses her cherished romantic fantasy. They strip away the protective veneer they've worn for decades until there is nothing left but the raw, painful truth.
It's mutually assured destruction.
Exactly.
This devastating, perfectly calibrated emotional bomb is the ultimate proof of her mastery of the short story genre. She takes massive, heavy themes, the suffocating weight of class, the rigid constraints of gender, the unreliability of memory, and the deepest, most intimate forms of betrayal, and condenses them into a single conversation at a cafe table.
It's incredible. From the claustrophobic terror of a train car in A Journey to the open-air psychological warfare of Roman fever, she demonstrates an unparalleled ability to focus narrative tension.
She really does.
Her critics rightly pointed out her understanding of proper proportions. She knew exactly how much space to allocate for the preliminary bouts, how to execute the climax with surgical precision, and how to deliver the recessional. That quiet, echoing silence as Grace walks toward the stairway.
It's a brilliant manipulation of pacing. She forces you, the reader, to pay as much attention to the silences and the concealments as you do to the actual dialogue.
Absolutely.
So I want you to think about your own life for a second. Think about the people you've known the longest. How many of your oldest friendships are built on shared histories that you might be looking at through the wrong end of a telescope?
It's a scary thought.
It really is. If you sat down and truly unpacked the past with someone you've known for decades, stripping away the polite veneer, what ancient, hidden truths might suddenly unravel your present? It makes you wonder how much we really know about the people sitting right across from us. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.